Good morning. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. This is episode 87, March 18, 2019. I thought what I would do. This is a fast-paced, trying to make it a fast-paced, up-to-date political podcast, which is all about Donald Trump and very supportive of Donald Trump and the things that he's doing well. Yes, sometimes I don't always agree with President Trump, but almost always do. And I've just been looking this morning at his what he's been tweeting. Oh, he just tweeted another story. He talks about the economy a lot. He tweeted 24 minutes ago about the growth. The GDP growth is above market expectations. He quotes 50% of Americans agree that Robert Mueller's investigation is a witch hunt. Very few think it's legit. We will soon find out. He's quoting this USA Today poll. This is really good. Then he tweets, "The fake news media is working overtime to blame me for the horrible attacks in New Zealand. They will have to work very hard to prove that one. So ridiculous." It is truly amazing, the blame game. I think the GOP has done well because Chelsea Clinton was being blamed for this New Zealand attack. Okay, this is ridiculous. These are crazy people who do crazy things. The only thing to stop in a church shooting, for the most part, is like guards, if a church can afford guards, or people who are armed in church. What else is going to stop something like that? It's going to be gun laws will not do it. There is no statistical evidence that gun control and gun bans decrease crime. Look at Chicago. Look at New York City. Look at LA. Okay, super high crime areas. They have extremely strict gun control laws. Okay, the bad guys do not follow the laws, and the good guys do. I read an interesting story about this person, these people. I forgot where it was now. I think it was in LA, or I can't remember where. But these people were, some people saw them with guns, like putting guns in the trunk of their car and stuff. And the police were called, and the police came in, and they said that they were making a movie, and that they had the guns in making the movie. Well, so making a movie obviously is not a crime, but these people had guns that were not registered or legal. This is probably in LA, but I can't remember. And so they were arrested for gun possession. So this is really, and these were minority, non-representative minority class. And so that means they were black or Hispanic, okay? They weren't Asians. And so these people were arrested because of gun laws and things like that. So you can see how gun laws can really hurt minorities, okay? Because even if they aren't doing anything wrong, they use this it's easy for the police to prove that they did something wrong when they have guns. And since guns are illegal, they're arrested. That sometimes works with drugs too. So anyhow, I think minorities can be really hurt by this. Donald is hilarious. He tweets about Joe Biden. Joe Biden got tongue-tied over the weekend when he was unable to properly deliver a very simple line about his decision to run for president. Get used to it, another low IQ individual. Donald is a big troll. I mean, this is what he does. But he's out in front. And he's really a strong leader, and I think people really like that. He tweets 93% approval rating in the Republican Party. Thank you. So, some people question Donald's modesty sometimes. I don't understand why. I love this. So he has this quote. He talks about General Motors and the UAW are going to start talks in September, October. Why wait? Start them now. I want jobs to stay in the United States. I want Lordstown, Ohio, one of the best economies in our history, opened or sold to a company who will open it fast. Car companies are all coming back to the United States. So is everyone else. We now have the best economy in the world, the envy of all. Get that big, beautiful plant in Ohio open now. Close a plant in China or Mexico where you're invested so heavily pre-Trump and not in the United States. Bring jobs home. Okay, and this is incredible. This is really incredible. If you look at the likes on this, okay, so those were 5 hours ago. So they already got 50,000 likes. Donald is fighting. And I remember when he was a candidate, they were making fun of Donald and like, oh, you open this plant, that's only 100 jobs here, that's only 100 jobs there. This is no big deal. What about the millions of people who really need jobs? I remember the Democrats really accusing him of this is just small potatoes kind of stuff. I love the symbolism of here. And this is really more than symbolism. Donald Trump really cares, okay? Now, you might agree or disagree with that, okay? I feel like he really does. But he is fighting for these jobs. And how would you like to be in these areas? How would you like to be living in Lordstown, Ohio? And working at one of those car manufacturing plants, and it's getting closed down. And the President of the United States is using his bully pulpit. Okay, he's just using his bully pulpit here. Justin Amash and others will go, oh, he's the President of the United States, he's getting, he shouldn't be weighing into all these little decisions. He is just getting on Twitter, okay, and he is fighting for these jobs to stay here. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. And I think that's why he won Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And that's why I think he'll win again. He is fighting for these jobs. And really, when it comes down to it in America, it's just jobs. I mean, the government, if people have jobs, okay, that is stability for the American family. I mean, nothing's more important. If I lost my job in trying to provide for my kids, I mean, that is a huge problem for me and my wife. Our jobs are really important. They provide for our families and our children. I've got kids in college right now. It's so important that I work and that I'm employed. And so for Donald to be fighting for these jobs is great. He, in all caps, he has Make America Great Again. I mean, that's got 167,000 likes. Okay. Now, some people are going to whine and complain about that, but whatever. Okay. And that's going to lead into my closing. I was listening to on my run to Dennis Prager, and I want to talk about that in closing. And so Donald just tweets. It's just fun to go to Twitter and then just search his name and then look at his Twitter feed. Look what he's retweeting. This teen was stabbed 100 times and set on fire by MS-13 murder. Okay, so Donald retweeted that. I mean, this is horrific stuff. Okay, this is something that you're probably not going to find on CNN. And that's okay. We have different news agencies with different biases. We all have biases. Fox News has got a conservative bias. CNN has got a leftist bias. I watched a Dennis Prager video. I'm really into Dennis Prager right now. I watched a video of him describing the difference between a leftist and a liberal. Very fascinating. I think he's really right. Liberals of the day, are like Senator Edward Kennedy, I think of him as, a big liberal. I mean, these people were very pro-America, okay, very pro-America. They liked bigger government, but they were religious, kind of pro-American kind of people. The left is not, okay, pro-America, okay. Even Superman has no allegiance now, I've read, to America. It used to be, all into America. No, now it's in an international thing. That makes me think about nation states. I mean, if there's too much power in the world, then some place might take over the world. I mean, that's what Hitler wanted to do, right? He started taking over countries and consolidating countries, basically. Germany was taking them over, and then he was going to use that to take over the world. We have a bunch of different nations, right, in the world, and that keeps, it's kind of a check and balance. I've been thinking. I think that's really true. But so the left right now, people like Comrade Cortez or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, I mean, these people seem very un-American, okay? It doesn't seem like they're really into promoting America. As a matter of fact, they denigrate America. They think it stinks. Who was it? I think Omar said that, or Cortez, I can't remember who it was, that, America, we're just 10% above, like, trash here in America or something. All of this criticism of America. And I really think that's harmful. Our American values make our country what it is. It makes it a country. Okay, that's why we have borders. Okay, we protect our values. So anyhow, it's interesting how Donald has now said that, he tweeted out on Saturday. He said, let's have transparency with the Mueller probe. Okay, a grand jury, I was reading, a grand jury is kept secret and private. They're trying to gather information to see if they have a case, okay? And if they have a case, then it goes to trial. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I've read. And so this Robert Mueller, this is a special counsel, and they're gathering evidence. They're gathering evidence on to see if there was like a Russian collusion with Donald Trump. Okay, they haven't, and we don't know about anything yet. The report's going to come out, but the report goes to the district, to the DOJ. I guess it goes to the Attorney General. Okay, and it goes to him privately. Okay, it goes to him privately, and then the Attorney General can decide if there's some crime or something here, and then we can proceed down that path, or they can reveal that path. With the President of the United States, he's protected from many things like this while he's in office. So he can't be harassed and hounded, so he can carry out his duties as President of the United States and not have to deal with constant lawsuits. And so that was private. And so they made that because remember with the special counsel of Bill Clinton, it just turns into a mining expedition and it's opposition research. Okay, it's not fair. It's not fair to the President of the United States to use a special counsel just to dig up dirt and stuff. We got to figure out if there was a crime, if something went wrong. And so anyhow, so this will be confidential as it goes to the Attorney General. But Donald, in all of his openness says, the Republicans just vote for transparency on this. Basically, don't worry about it. We'll look good on this, and he just repeats that this has definitely been unsubstantiated witch hunt. It is really amazing, with the Lisa Page, and so now we've got all the transcripts of what she said in last year or the year before. We realize how this was an incredible deep state operation. This all is tied back to Barry Obama. I mean, his DOJ, he lied to us. He said he wasn't involved in these things, that he's trying to keep the FBI neutral. Okay, so of course the FBI works for the Attorney General. The Attorney General works for the President of the United States. Okay, the FBI is just an extension of the administrative arm of Article 2 powers of the President of the United States. Okay, the boss, Christopher Wray, who's the head of the FBI right now, his boss, the ultimate boss is President Donald J. Trump. Okay, that is his boss. Okay, that's who he works for. Okay, that's where his allegiance is to the President of the United States. We elect a president and we give him that power. And so to pretend that the FBI is some neutral party and things, that's really a lie, but they're investigators, right? They can investigate and they can bring up evidence. They can give the evidence to courts and the courts can convict people. That's my simplistic view of that. And so anyhow, Donald is just so white. This Christopher Steele dossier that was just droned up, he's admitted. Christopher Steele just picking random sources from CNN. Okay, he just doctored this thing up. Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for this. This is basically opposition research. Then they give it to Nellie Orr, who's the head of Fusion GPS. Her husband works at the FBI. I think it's FBI or DOJ. Bruce Orr, oh, guess what? Guess what? Gives it to, if I remember right, John McCain gets the dossier. John McCain. And John McCain leaks it. Oh, John McCain. Oh, Megyn Kelly's going at it with some other people on Twitter saying that, no, Donald, you'll never be loved as much as my father. And Donald's retweeting on this. It's very frustrating, John McCain. Whatever. Rest in peace, John McCain. But wow, politically, we really didn't like some of the things you did. Like you really tried to undermine the President of the United States with this dirty dossier, which was just made up, which had no credibility. Just mudslinging. And it's been a huge distraction. But we move forward and we keep winning, which is awesome. And then for John McCain to vote no on Obamacare repeal was just whatever. So anyhow, so yeah, you guys ever get bored, just go to Twitter and look at Donald's tweets. They're fabulous. He is very transparent. You know exactly what he's thinking, which can be fun sometimes. But anyhow, so excited. I really feel like we're winning. Of course, people have asked me, do I think that Donald Trump's going to get reelected? Yes, I do believe that he's going to get reelected. And so I think we'll keep on winning. Okay, I've got friends who say, I really just don't really care a whole lot about politics. I just don't want to pay more in taxes. And Donald Trump has cut my taxes. I've got a friend, she thinks that the border, these people are coming over, their places that they're coming from are really bad. I mean, we should just be charitable. And I'm thinking, well, are you going to pay for it? Or you want me to pay for them? I really don't want to pay for them. I have friends who just say, I just don't want to pay for all this stuff. I give to charity. I give to my church. We help take care of the poor. I give to other NGOs to help take care of the poor. I'm not really into my country, my government taking care of these poor people and all these immigrants from these very poor countries. I want merit-based economy. Merit-based immigration. I don't want to pay for all these people. I really agree with a lot of these people. I don't want to pay for a lot of these people who are just hopping our border. Donald is tweeting, these infrared images, or I don't know, they're black and white images of all these people, just coming into our country. They hop a little fence or something. They're just plowing right in. NPR did a story and admitted, and Donald retweeted this, that the illegals, aliens are coming in. They're moving more interior into more remote places of the border to come in because some of the walls have forced them to do that. Okay, we're making it more difficult. We'll never be able to be 100% airtight to prevent these illegals from coming in, but we can certainly decrease the flow. And 72 or 76,000 being apprehended in February is just outrageous, okay? So this is an emergency. I'm glad that Donald declared it. He has that right to do so. Congress has given him that authority to do that. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I was listening to this podcast. I love podcasts, and Leading Saints podcast. And he interviewed this man who's a bishop for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a church that I belong to down in Dallas. And I think it was 2015, this man's daughter was killed. Her name is Zoe Hastings, was killed in Dallas. She was 18 years old. She was going to a church meeting like on a Wednesday night. It was like 5 p.m. She had the family's minivan, and she went to a Walgreens to return a Redbox movie. And apparently there was a guy there who got out of his car, and then he forced his way into the minivan and drove off with her. He raped and killed her. He cut her throat, slit her throat. And he was apprehended and tried and convicted. And he is in jail now. And so anyhow, I've been really looking at this. This really is, every parent's nightmare. And it's interesting that, as I, once again, we make the argument of like why we send to prison. Of course, the family of this convicted murderer now, they were saying, have mercy on him. His father, you never had a father there for him and things like that. And it reminds me of the Obama quote. When Obama spoke out in 2014, he said, I explained to them that when I was their age, I was a lot like them. I didn't have a dad in the house. I was angry about it, even though I didn't necessarily realize it at the time. And Obama goes on describing how he had made bad choices, like using drugs and not taking school seriously. And then Obama talked about the only difference is that I grew up in an environment that was a little bit more forgiving. It reminds me of these families, these families who, especially in the inner city, the problems that we've had with these fatherless families. Like in the black community, the fatherless families now, I think, is like 70%. Okay, Barry Obama's father was from Kenya, and he took off. He left his mom, who was from Kansas, and he was actually Barry Obama was raised by his grandparents in Hawaii. So anyhow, this Zoe Hastings case is really hard. The father was the press was really all over the father of Zoe, and he spoke out, and he really wanted this guy to be locked up forever. I guess he couldn't get the death penalty, but really we show the value of life. If we don't convict this guy, so if we convict this guy of murder, we know he raped and murdered this 18-year-old girl, then why, if we give him a light sentence, I mean, what kind of value are we tying to life? And I think it's really good that we should really throw the book at these people, so to speak, and that we really value life. I mean, so Zoe Hastings' life was taken by this man. If we give him a light sentence, what kind of value are we tying or associating to her life? So I really think there's a justice really speaks in our court systems. And I think that's a way of thinking of it. Yes, you also have the fact that we need to get him off the streets. Okay, this guy is a convicted bad guy. This guy was convicted of raping his ex-girlfriend's daughter, like 17-year-old daughter, just a year before this. And he had a long criminal history. Okay, so this guy has a history of being a super bad guy. And then he gets caught doing this, which is just horrific. So we really do need to have justice. I think that's the way we express our values, values for life and liberty. And so anyhow, I just was really touched by that. I do want to switch gears a little bit in talking about the New Zealand case. They're talking about registering guns. And I talked to a friend about this, and he really thinks that if guns are registered, then the Fourth Amendment to unreasonable search and seizures will really be violated. And he used the example of DUIs. And so now you can take blood from people. The police usually don't need a warrant to take your blood. So if you're in a bad car crash or something like that, it looks like you've been drinking or something like that, you do have the right to refuse a blood test, okay? But then, let's see if I can remember, an implied consent law makes cooperating with the BAC testing a condition of the privilege of driving. Don't submit to testing in appropriate circumstances. If you don't submit, you'll lose your driver's license. And so really, when we drive a car, you really give up your right to refuse the test. And so you can refuse the test, but then you'll be prosecuted for refusing the test. And so anyhow, with a gun registry, so that will mean that the police will probably have the ability to just search your house, for a gun if we have a gun registry. So that I think is a really scary thing. I think that's really a Trojan horse. I'm very against these gun control situations, and we've got plenty of gun control. The gun control laws they make it more cumbersome for the good guys, and they don't make it any harder for the bad guys. The bad guys get their guns, and so anyhow, I found when I was searching this yesterday, doing research on this, I came across this article, The Catastrophic Consequences of Gun Registration, and this is from the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. I think that's really great. I wanted to touch on one other thing before I close talking about Dennis Prager. I was doing some research on the Hatch Act of 1939. This is fascinating. about it's called the Act to Prevent Pernicious Political Activities. So in the government, this says it's a United States federal law, this is Wikipedia, whose main provision prohibits employees in the executive branch of the federal government, except the president, vice president, and certain designated high officials, from engaging in some forms of political activity. Okay, so these are people, so the people in the executive branch, they can't politic. So, and it lists all the organizations, the CIA, and of course, the government's so big, Defensive Intelligence Agency, FBI, Federal Election Commission, National Security Agency, National Security Council, Secret Service, blah, blah, blah. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosive. So anyhow, Office of Law Enforcement. So anyhow, these employees in the executive branch are not supposed to politic and stuff. And this gets back to the Peter Strzok thing, as Rush calls them, Lisa Page, these other people who are working in the executive branch. Remember, Robert Mueller, his special counsel, is working under the executive branch. That's where all this authority is coming from. Robert Mueller is actually working for President Trump right now, but President Trump's allowing him to do this special counsel, this special investigation. So anyhow, so if you get into big politicking and you're walking around at work with a big sign, politicking, no, it's against the law. Okay. Well, actually, I think what you'll do is you just can be fired. Okay. So I don't think it's against the law, but I think you're just fired. So that's the Hatch Act. And so anyhow, this is a quick and easy way to get, like, when Peter Strzok is getting accused and was, when we found out how he had this surprise, I forgot what he called it, this thing that they could go back up against in case Donald Trump won, a way of getting him out. So that was obviously, I think, well, some people would call that a pernicious political activity. It was very political. And so that's what we call the deep state. I wanted to end here with Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is really good about talking about when he was growing up that he felt like he was an American and he was a Jew. And so these two things gave him a lot of identity, okay, and gave him a lot of purpose. He was very American. He was very pro-American. But he also, Dennis Prager, throughout his life, I think he's traveled to like 131 countries. He mentioned Bulgaria in his fireside chat. They went to Bulgaria, and then he met some lady there, and she was studying Bulgarian history, and he thought that was really awesome. So this is about nation building. Our church has been like this. When Spencer W. Kimball was the prophet and president of our church back in the 70s and early 80s, he was talking about how originally, when our church was started in the early 1800s by our first prophet, Joseph Smith, many of the saints were gathering in Ohio, and then Missouri, and then Nauvoo, Illinois, and then actually Utah. So people were coming mainly from England. We had missionaries in England, a lot of people joining our church in Scandinavian countries and coming to Utah. Well, eventually, and our church grew rapidly with that, with all these people joining our church from across the country. And so anyhow, the prophet, President Kimball, said that you could just stay in your countries, build the church where you are, build the church up in the countries that you live in. And so Dennis Prager is very pro-American, but it's not in a haughty sense, but that's because he lives in America. He likes this Bulgarian who was building up Bulgaria. So that's the nationalism that I think Donald Trump talks about. That is make America great again. And that is, it gives us a sense of identity and our values. And then he was a Jew, and that was his religious affiliation, and that gave him a sense of identity. He says the left now, that's the only thing they care about is race, gender, and class. Okay, and they're very anti-American. This is very true of Cortez, Omar, Rashida Tlaib. I think you see it in these leftist kind of people. I mean, look at Bernard Sanders, very anti-American in very many ways, very pro-Russian. That's where he went on his honeymoon. So anyhow, I wanted to leave you with how grateful I am to be an American, to be born in this country, and to really try to help make America great again, to try to make this country that I live in the best. If you live outside of America, you can build up your country wherever you are to make it into the best place that it can be. And so anyhow, that is my show. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. You can find the show at philkoerper.com. You can find it on iTunes or SoundCloud or the video on YouTube. All right, you guys, I hope you have a great day and be good. Thank you so much.